Goeiedag. Good day, fellow South Africans. And yes, the good news keeps coming. As you've heard, Andile, the racist BLF goon, has been banned from Twitter. And apparently it's going to be a permanent ban, and I'm hoping that soon his BLF party will follow and be banned as well. And it's pretty obvious why Andile's been banned. But anyway, there's an article in the Citizen newspaper talking about Andile getting really upset because of the banning that he faced in Twitter. Now, guess what, big boy? Guess what, big boy? You're not so big anymore, are you? You're actually very little. I'll tell you what's big. The Grand Canyon at Arizona. That's big. I was there last month. Okay? Now, in this article, and excuse my dog in the background, yes, he's doing his little panting trick. Okay, so Mnixitama is the president of the BLF. This column is published as a writer reply to him. Oh, he is so lucky. He wouldn't get in Australia if he was someone involved on the right-wing side of politics, that's for sure. I wonder why. But anyway, so here's Andile. I'm currently banned across social media platforms. There are also a dozen criminal and hate speech cases against me, laid with the police and the South African Human Rights Commission. In addition, there has been massive pressure to have Black First, Land First banned from the 2019 elections. And then he asks us, this is where the 70 IQ comes in. Okay, guys? This is where the 70 IQ comes in. I think he's a bit lower, but anyway. He asks this question. He says, why this much animus? Animus meaning hatred. Hatred. And then he goes on to say, the answer is because black speech is always censored. And political organizations is anti-black. These two insights were developed by the US-based leading black radical scholar, Professor Frank Wilderson, who was also an Umkhonto weSizwe operative in South Africa. It's my contention that it's through the prism of what Professor Wilderson calls Afro-pessimism that we can better understand the visceral response to my calls for self-defense. Now, let me assure you, that was not written by one Andile. The language used in that little paragraph is way above his IQ. So what you've got is someone else who's written that, and he's now advocating that that's what he's written, which is bullshit. I mean, it's obvious. It's blindingly obvious. Okay, let's continue. And he Andile, or whoever it is, his proxy continues and says, the caveat to my call has been muted, and the perceived threat to white life upon which the caveat was based has been amplified. Where white life is concerned, there can be no rational engagement. Any threat to white life, whether real or imagined, invites swift and brutal retribution. This is now whiteness buttresses itself as life and blackness as death. That's starting to sound more like this goon, but it's still not quite there. There's still a few big words in there, guys, okay? He continues to say, my Twitter handle, with more than 80,000 followers, has been permanently banned from Twitter. My handle was first suspended for 7 days, after which Twitter said, I could appeal the suspension. How do white people think? So I appealed the suspension I had already served. They came back and said, I'm now permanently suspended. Whites, the supposed upholders of justice and the rule of law, inventors of the doctrine of double jeopardy, do not apply their own creed if they feel threatened. I lost access to more than 80,000 followers and the broader social media community because I dared to say, don't kill black people. Hello? Hello? I don't think that's what you said, Andile. I don't think that's what you said. And when it comes to you being banned from Twitter, there are some very, very big, huge account holders in Twitter who've been banned, like Alex Jones, who had millions of supporters. And his sin was to actually take an opposing view to yours, and it wasn't as violent either. Your view clearly was to kill the white people in South Africa. How can you defend that view? Anyway, let's continue. I was also slapped down with a 30-day ban by Facebook. As if that's not enough now, YouTube has removed the historic speech I gave in Ikangang on the 8th of December. I'm not interested to explain the context and reason for my call for what has become known as the 1-to-5 ratio. Basically, for one black life taken, we blacks shall take 5 white lives. Now, that's a speech that I refused to run on my channel because it was so appalling and so disgusting. And he wonders why it's been taken off his YouTube channel. He's obviously got a community strike for that, guys, okay? Just be aware of that. My community strike has gone. It expired 2 days ago. Yay! So I'm pretty well strike-free right now. Whereas these goons, and we've got to keep a good eye on the EFF, you know, double standards might apply in South Africa, and I've had a recent video, and I'll link it down below where you can see how they do. But they might be biased, but they're not completely double standards on the internet. I know there's a huge liberal leaning in the social media, the guys who run channels like YouTube and Twitter and so on, but they still have an element of understanding in what's wrong and what's right, which is what apparently the South African judicial system is missing today, which is very sad. Anyway, I'll continue. I'm blabbing on here. Okay. It won't matter for me to try to explain that the call is based on another white invention called the preemptive strike. In fact, it's not even preemptive because retribution will only follow after a life has been taken. However, the inner logic of the call is indeed preventative. I don't expect this to be heard or understood by white people and brainwashed blacks. I won't even bother to say the call was a direct response to the threat of unleashing black-on-black violence through the taxi industry by Johann Rupert. Now, if you listen to Johann Rupert's interview on that TV channel that he gave about a week ago, all he was saying is that if a group of blacks attacked, the taxi industry blacks would respond and fight back. They weren't the antagonists, they were the defenders. But this is how history is rewritten by arseholes like Andile. Okay. He continues to say in this article, I'm not surprised that I've been declared insane by whites and enlightened blacks for having the chutzpah to call for white lives to avenge black lives. The mind refuses to accept that black lives matter too. Such a bold statement was always going to cause cognitive dissonance from both whites and blacks, because it shatters the sanctity of whiteness and therefore brings disorder to our coordinates that give coherence to life. Now, clearly, that sentence was never compiled by Andile. He has got someone who's writing his stuff for him. And I'll tell you, there are just 3 words in that sentence that expose that this is bullshit. Okay? First word, chutzpah. He wouldn't know what the hell chutzpah is. And the other 2 words are cognitive dissonance. That's way above his IQ. I mean, that's about 100 plus. Okay, so he's got someone in there who's writing his shit, and then he's putting his name to it. That's what's happening here. Because if it was him, it would be like, oh, my mates, my buddies, we are the ones. He has no idea of the relevance of words like that. This is a clear example of someone who has got a speechwriter in, and this is his response. It's prepared by a third party. This is not written by Andile. Not one word. I guarantee that. I'd put money on that. I would put money on that. Anyway, let's continue. So, he goes on to say the anti-blackness of the Organization of Justice and Ethics that foregrounds whiteness was shown in all its nastiness when Mika Xavier Johnson took down 5 white cops in the USA as part of advancing black self-defense. He died fighting. A martyr. You would have thought he was denounced. You would have thought. He was denounced by the very movement called Black Lives Matter. Why? Because taking white life in defense of black lives threatens Armageddon. What planet does this guy live on? Look, I know that NASA has just landed a satellite on Mars. Maybe Andile should go to Mars and go and talk to people up there, because I think he's on a different planet. I really do. I think he's totally lost it. Anyway, let's continue. The multiple banning orders against my name signify the fiction of rights where blacks are concerned. Black people have no rights. For instance, there is freedom of expression so long as that speech is not considered a threat to white interests. Blacks from early in life train themselves to censor their speech. Speaking out of turn has real consequences for black people. It's for this reason the racist, extreme right wings such as Freedom Front Plus can threaten civil war and there is no outcry. The same license which is permitted to whites and denied to blacks sees Johann Rupert declaring ownership of a private army and is met with approving laughter. Black speech is censored speech, and therefore when black people speak out in the presence of whiteness, it must be assumed that it's a mere movement of lips, but not speech. We tell the world what it wants to hear to avoid trouble. Let me tell you a simple truth, buddy boy, that since the ANC came in and took government 24 years, trillions of rands have been stolen from the government. Every state-owned enterprise today is bankrupt. And before the goons got in, and they're not even the bad goons, it's the ANC. The bad goons are the EFF and the BLF, but as soon as the goons got in and affirmative action happened, guess what happened? The country just went down, 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 down. And in a couple of years' time, South Africa is going to be no better than Zimbabwe. And the problem you're going to have with expropriation of land without compensation and taking away the farmers' land, and the banks now refusing to fund the farmers, the white farmers who are trying to operate farms, your population, your followers are going to be starving. That's the reality. And when you go back to pre-1994, to suggest that you would ever have reached this position would have been laughable. But it took only 24 years for the black Africans to bring South Africa right down into the shithole. Okay? That's where it is right now. It's cactus. It's no wonder that not only white South Africans are desperate to leave that country, but I get so many emails from black South Africans who want to leave that country. They know where it's going. They want to get out of there. Anyway, let's get back to what Andile has to say now that he's been banned from Twitter. Love it. Love it. Okay. Another notion which explains the kind of trouble my statement has elicited is political organizations is anti-black. The space of politics is rigged against blacks. Every rule is predetermined against blacks. It is for this reason that the spokesperson of whiteness have hastened to call for the BLF to be disqualified from the 2019 elections. This is because the BLF doesn't acquiesce to the anti-black political party rules. The BLF is pro-black and ipso facto illegal, according to white logic and fears. It's important to remember that white fears have legislative powers. Now, once again, I don't have to go beyond 2 words to demonstrate that this was not written by Andile. Okay, and those 2 words are, where are they? Ipso facto. Ipso facto. Now, ipso facto, Andile wouldn't know what the hell that means. It's actually in fact, but it's a sort of like a very academic way of saying it. But he would never understand that. So there are so many pointers here that this article has been written by a third party, and he's just put his name to it. And there are 2 more paragraphs to go, guys, so we're nearly done with this idiot. The presence of the BLF in the political life of South Africa is testing the limits of the anti-black constitutional dispensation reached in 1994. Furthermore, the BLF, by virtue of its uncompromising existence, is exposing the hypocrisy of the 1994 consensus. Is it not telling that South African laws allow for the existence of known anti-black terrorist organizations such as the RVB, but is threatened by the BLF? Okay, that's 1 more paragraph to go, and then I've got a little thing to say. The BLF represents the fundamental grievances of black people that were not addressed in 1994. We speak out of turn and refuse to be disciplined by anti-black threats covered as concern for civility and rule of law. Our job in the final analysis is to make the impossible possible. That's how crazy we are. And he says that with an exclamation mark, okay? And that's another pointer that he didn't write this, because he wouldn't know what the hell an exclamation mark is. We shall attain black liberation. If not now, the next generation. True black liberation is a business of the mad. I'm happy to say I'm one of the mad ones. Okay, that's his article. Now, I only have one comment to make to you, buddy boy, Andile. You're a kid, okay? I'm an old fart. You got to respect me. Do you understand that? Let me tell you what my one comment is. That in 1994, the whole basis of the white South Africans handing over what was effectively their country, their government, their politics to the broader population was a thing called the Rainbow Nation, which accommodated all races. You are a black Nguni man. You invaded South Africa from the north through KwaZulu-Natal only a few hundred years ago. The white settlers invaded South Africa through Cape Town a couple of hundred years ago. What is 100 years when you consider that the original landowners and true original owners of Southern Africa, the Khoi and the San, have been in this part of the world for tens of thousands of years. And you are now suggesting that you are in charge and that the internet is treating you badly because you feel you can talk about killing the whites. I have one little gesture for you, Andile. Okay, I'll leave it up there for a second. Okay. And getting back to my subscribers, please remember this Sunday night, 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, we have a very, very interesting discussion with Alice, who's the author of My Turn. And I'll put the link down below so you can actually join that particular channel. And also remember that we got some very interesting things coming up that I'm getting from EFF members. I put up a videos asking them, because I've got quite a few EFF members who actually now follow my channel, and I'm starting to talk to a couple of them in confidence by email, and I won't say anything more at this time, but I think it's going to have quite an interesting impact on the elections next year. And I think the reason they're contacting me is because I don't live in South Africa, and because they know that the confidentiality is guaranteed. All right, guys, have a great day. Subscribe here and subscribe to the channel below. Okay? Take care.